One to the Wild Pod. Betsy is not here tonight, and here in a few, we should have someone else popping in to say hi. But I figured I'd blaze on anyway, uh, and talk about some winter scary stuff. But before we get on that, we'll let it spool up for a second. We'll just have a small chat. I'm here in Utah. It's been snowing for pretty good for the last week. Nothing like what you see, like images out of New York or Canada or Minnesota, Wisconsin, Michigan, all those places. But, we've got a little bit on the ground, and it's just, it's rather beautiful here. So the mountains around, so they're white, and then we got the haziness going on. So it's kind of in shadow. It just really changes the way everything looks. But I'm going to hurry up and make some adjustments to some stuff here. But anyway, so today I want to talk about some winter scariness. And Sarah is here. So as her stuff warms up, we'll do this. Sarah, can you hear me? Okay, can you hear me? All right, she's bumping in and out. But anyways, we'll just go on. We'll keep chatting. And she can see me. Can you hear me? No sound from you. All right, she's got to play with her. Yeah. Let's see.
Okay, there. Can you hear me now?
I can hear you now. All right.
Okay. Yeah, I don't know why it went to mute.
Yes.
Very strange. So how are you doing?
I'm doing good. How are you?
Much better than I was.
Yeah?
That's for sure. Yeah, I had COVID for the first time, so it's been kind of a nightmare.
Oh, really?
Yep.
You took your turn of catching the virus, huh?
That I did.
Oh my goodness, yeah. So, you come through it okay?
I did. I'm a little bit concerned about my mom right now. The doctor just called and asked her to go to the ER, but she's kind of resistant to doing anything she needs to do. So,
Really?
so it is what it is. Yes.
Well,
But we'll get there.
why
You
is
know,
she
she's still
being
sick
why is she
tomorrow.
being resistant?
She is a nurse, and you know how that is. It's just really hard for people that are in the medical field to be patients, I guess. They feel like they're hypochondriacs, and so they refuse to go in.
Oh, really?
Mm-hmm.
Oh,
Yeah,
all right.
it's a common trend.
Oh, that's rough. Okay, Sarah, you're on screen now. Say hi to everyone.
There's baby. Yeah, there we go.
All right. Sarah's hair's crazy. She was at the store when I called and asked her if she'd come on. So we want to thank her very much for the last minute show up.
Yeah.
Now,
UPS. Gosh, there's like 10 people in front of me. It's crazy there.
just mailing out Christmas gifts or what?
No, we had a tablet that needed to be repaired, so I had to send that back to Verizon, and then of course an Amazon return, which I'm sure that I'll get a thing from them in about 3 months saying we never received it and we charged your card again, because it happens every time.
Does it really? Is that a common
Yeah,
thing?
it is for me. I don't know about other people.
Oh, all right. Well, before we kick into this story, Sarah, let's go ahead and introduce yourself. Tell us about what you do and all that stuff. Your pedigree, humming.
Okay, well, my name is Sarah Cook. That's Cooke, because I have a very unusual last name, I know.
Cook like the
Um,
captain.
and I right now am the current person who runs Hidden Realms Paranormal of Salt Lake City. I'm also on Paranormal Girls, which is a part of Guiding Light Society, which will be coming more into play, I think, this next year. And they run Moonstones and Sundries, which I'm also a part of that. I do pet readings now. I've done a couple of those. Those have been fun. Tarot. I'm a psychic medium, but just I don't like to really consider myself like that. Like I don't think I'd be on TV or anything for that because I don't think I'm that great at it. Um, because I think that that's a lot to pull out like every time to get something, and you always see that, and that's not me. Like it does not come to me every single time.
Mm.
Um, I usually do pretty well with the names. I've had a few mishaps recently with just when you get a lot of emotional stuff going on, it can be kind of hard to really get where you need to be there in your headspace. But usually I'm pretty good with them. And let's see, I have a background in social services, psychology, graduated from San Diego State University with a psychology degree. And there's something else I have, but I can't remember. I think it's like human resources or something. I don't know. I have 3 degrees, 2 AAs and 1 BA.
Mm.
And right now I'm just kind of hanging out at an antique shop and doing that a couple days a week, and taking things slow, getting over COVID, as we mentioned, and
Mm-hmm.
just got engaged. So that's a new thing, which Jared, we're hoping that he's going to do
Oh,
our
you
ceremony.
bet I
So
am.
yeah, it'll be fun.
I am. I'm excited for it. I'm gonna write up my whole spiel and everything. Now, you said you do pet readings.
Mm-hmm.
Okay, so many directions I want to go. But like my dog, it could be
I love
neediness
your
and
dog. Your dog is
frustration.
so cute.
Yeah, she is very cute. She's a royal pain in the butt. But like when you read Chihuahuas, is it just they're just saying over and over again death and kill, just shivering through their hate?
The way it comes across is like if you're talking to somebody like a
They see
4-year-old.
red. It's blood red, like a
It's not usually
four-year-old
blood
Jeffrey
red, but
Dahmer. A
it's usually like
four-year-old.
the 2 that I've done. The one was a puppy, and it was just kind of like new smells, what's going on? And he was just like, very hyperactive, and his brain was going 100 miles a minute with like all the new senses that were coming to him. And they talk very short sentences, and at least that's how I hear them, is very short sentences. So it's like, I like bacon. I need more bacon.
That's
That's
like
usually that
talking to
kind of
me.
stuff.
I mean, that's
Um,
so you're saying I'm a Chihuahua now? I am not near violent enough to be a Chihuahua. I'll tell you that right now.
Nate had 2 Chihuahuas,
Yeah.
and they're very sweet, actually. The one, his dog Puddin does not like anybody, but I got that dog to come up and she gives me kisses and stuff. So I mean, we have a good time. But I think it's about connecting with them and understanding their anxiety issues
Their
and what's
bloodlust,
going on.
their
Like I
desire to stand on top of a mountain of bodies. I understand Chihuahuas are, it's a good thing that they aren't any bigger or we'd be in trouble.
Well, I think that has to do with the fact that they are so small that it can be very overwhelming for them to not know if they're in danger, and so they feel like they have to get protective, like
Could be.
short man syndrome, right?
Could be little Hitlerettes in there. Um,
Yeah.
all right. So, everyone, this is Sarah Cook. She's been on the show multiple times, and she's helping me out today with this, even though she doesn't know what we're talking about. So, I guess she's going to be like a hype man. Going to hear a little what out of her and an amen and a yeah. And,
No.
but King says, he asked you a question.
Joking now.
King says, what are your thoughts on Son of Sam hearing dogs talk to him?
It's a fine line between crazy and reality.
I also think Son of Sam used that as an excuse because he jumped through a lot of different excuses along the path. I mean, he just went from one to
Mm-hmm.
another, and he just kept bounding through them. Man, you want to go deep into conspiracy hole? Talk about his conspiracy hole with where he was a part of a cult that did it. And
Mm.
do I believe it or not? I would, for the conspiracy factor, I want to believe it. Um, but all of the signs point to no. Because all of the murders kind of had all of the witnesses saw the same person. And they kind of had kind of the same MO. So if he was a part of a cult, it was a cult that handed out kind of the curly hair, and then they all trained the same. So they were all up on the same thing because there wasn't a change in weapon, in demeanor, in any of that all throughout it. And I think he just brought up an excuse, but for the conspiracy factor, that's the coolest part. But then again, when you
Mm-hmm.
dig into it, there's a lot of names that are dropped that come around. I'll have to do a show on it one day and up my research. It's been a while since I've looked into that.
Yeah, I remember I watched the movie and I'm not too familiar with the case, but it's really hard because it's so easy for people to get so much information in the news and to recreate it and say, well, I was a part of that or it was me. And you know how that is. They get a lot of
Mm-hmm.
false reports, people who try to imitate things. Um, and nowadays they've made it to where it's become very commercialized with serial killers kind of because of the fact that it means that why the main reason why they do it is they think that one, they're not going to ever get caught, and two, because if they do get caught or even if they don't, it's going to somehow make them famous, and
And
they want
yeah,
that to be their legacy more than anything.
I think we've seen that a bit with school shooters,
Mm-hmm.
young men who want to make a name for themselves. And I don't know. I propose we start instead. You know how they always with them they give them the three name. The first name, middle name, last name. We should just start calling them, dipshit and crap for brains, and give them names like that. Just really putrid names, and see if that it's worth a try, right? See if that
I mean,
slows
it
it
could
down.
be.
Because right
It
now
very well could be.
well, the kid we did a show or talked about this on the show a while back. The kid down in Florida that shot up the school. Um, he was getting love letters while he was in jail before he went
Oh
to
yeah.
trial.
Oh yeah, they do.
And what
It's
woman, from a woman's standpoint, not to disparage your whole gender, but what would cause a woman to, what do you think would cause a woman to look at that and say, now's my chance to shoot my shot?
um I think that there's a certain element of, one, are they good looking? Because for like that would be the first thing, right? Are they good looking? Secondly, if being with them, is that going to make me famous because now I'm with them? But
Mm.
thirdly, I kind of feel that a lot of that has to do with they're dangerous and maybe I
Mm.
can be the one to change them.
Beauty and the Beast.
Mm-hmm.
The what do they call it? The maiden story. Well, okay. We shouldn't go too far down that line. YouTube will probably yell at us for that. But okay, so let's get on. Let's get on to today's show. All right,
Okay.
I've got a couple of little stories to tell, and I'm going to kick it off with kind of a modern. Let's be honest. This is a little creepy pasta.
All right.
And I'm starting this story after they kind of after they let off. So I'm starting it kind of late into the story. The witness in this case claims that he spends a lot of time camping and hiking in the area with his brother Ryan. And on this day, they had headed out to a place they knew well. Midway through Jack's River Trail in the Cahuta Wilderness, they searched for a good secluded area to set up camp for a planned 2-night stay. Got everything set up, and after a day of hiking and exploring the Jack's River, the trip seemed to be off to a great start. That night, they got a fire going, had dinner, and sat chatting away until a sound caught their attention. According to the witness, they were very familiar with the sounds of the forest, and this sounded off to them, as if several people were walking around the campsite trying not to be heard. Then things got bizarre rather quickly, of which the witnesses say. I remember we both pulled out of our flashlights and shone it into the direction we felt the sounds were coming from. But that is what was so weird. Whenever we would fix our lights on a spot we thought the sound were coming from, the location of the sound would suddenly change. That's when the whistling started. At first I thought it was the wind, and I remember thinking maybe the wind is just throwing leaves around and that we are hearing nothing but the wilderness moving around us. Ryan looked at me and asked if I was hearing that. I didn't answer, and I was trying to focus hard on each individual sound. 2 consecutive notes with roughly a 3 to 4 second gap, and then 2 more consecutive notes. Over and over again, Ryan kept asking if I heard that, and I put my finger to my lips, trying to keep him from talking. So they said the 2 consecutive notes, but they don't explain, like, was it a whistle, a scream, a growl? That's all it says. The fear I felt was incredible. My jaw was tight, my fists clenched, knowing I wasn't ready for whatever was out there, if it was anything at all. The whistling continued for what felt like forever, but thinking it through was maybe 5 minutes when Ryan finally yelled out into the darkness, "Hey, quiet." The whistling stopped. Okay, so here it says it's whistling. We sat there in We sat there in silence for a few minutes when the woods erupted with noise. Something or someone was running in a circle around our campsite. The whistling came back. 2 consecutive notes with the same 3 to 4 second gap, and then 2 more consecutive notes. How could someone whistle this loudly without cracking while also running? I was done. I stood up, shining my flashlight in all directions, trying to catch a glimpse of whatever was screwing with us. Nothing. It felt close enough to touch, but we never saw a thing. That's when the movement stopped, but the whistling was still constant. It was so loud, inhumanly loud. I looked at Ryan and I told him to call the police. Now this is the part I will never forget, the part I never like to talk about. While Ryan was on the phone with a dispatcher and telling them our location and what was going on, I stepped around the fire towards my tent. Inside my bag, I had a 6-inch fixed blade that I always carried and thought I would feel a bit more comfortable with it in my hand. More than just a flashlight. As I went to unzip my tent, trying to keep my eyes towards the woods, I heard some movement directly in front of me. I swept my light up in front of me, and for maybe 2 seconds I saw it. Whatever this person or thing was, it was about 5 feet up in a tree. Everything about it was long. Its arms, legs, necks, fingers, everything. And it was fast. As soon as the light hit it, it launched backwards off of the tree. I heard it land, but it either jumped an impossible distance or landed in a thicket because I heard it, but never saw it. I don't think I've ever yelled so loud. I ran back to where Ryan was and sat down. He kept asking me about what I saw, and I couldn't answer. I just kept thinking about what I saw. All right. We're not going to finish the whole story. That's kind of just a middle part of it.
Just the middle. Okay.
Just the middle. So, so it's been snowing here for about the past week, right? here in
Mm-hmm.
Utah. And it's beautiful. I mean, if you haven't been to Utah, it's kind of a magical place. Tall, steep mountains with wide valleys. It's a great basin paradise. But I look out this morning. This before Betsy let me know she couldn't go on today. She was going to do a story about Scary Christmas. I don't know what it was about. It's supposed to be a surprise to me, but she
Like the
couldn't make it.
Nightmare Before Christmas. Like,
Maybe I don't know. I don't know. Maybe we'll be talking about Jack Skellington and the girl made out of patches. I forget her name. But I look out and we've got this kind of permanent haze above the mountains and then snow on the ground, snow up the mountains. The haze is also, so it just kind of makes for a beautiful scene. And winter is beautiful, but it's deadly beautiful. You know, you look out there and you know it's deadly.
yeah, it really is. And there's something too when you get to where there's the fog that comes with the winter.
Mm-hmm.
It's it can be so quiet and just terrifying for how still it is, and you just don't know, what's going to come out of it. And I think about those people that I think they still do this, like, but I think like Little House on the Prairie, right, where they had to have the rope that led from the house to the barn because you couldn't see because it was just so much snow and haze and all of that.
Mm-hmm.
And you get stuck out there. There's so many things that could go wrong.
Guide ropes, you end up wandering off into the middle of nowhere. King says fear is a primal emotion. Then he asks, are we in Salt Lake City, Utah? Sarah is in Ogden, or the Ogden area,
No.
which is
No.
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 You're not. Where are you at now?
I
Then
live by the Olympic Oval.
okay. Who's in Ogden?
So that's in Kearns. It is in Salt Lake City. If you send me out, Salt Lake City, but it's
so you're
Kearns.
in the south end of Salt Lake City. You're in Kearns, in okay. And
yeah,
I'm
right opposite the mountain from you.
Yeah, directly. Okay, I thought you were in Ogden. No. Jennifer and Mary.
Did I freeze? Can you hear me? Oh, there you are.
Jennifer and Mary are in Ogden. Right?
Yes.
Okay.
Yeah.
That's why I was mixed up. Okay. So she's in the south end of the Salt Lake Valley, and I'm in Tooele on the other side of the mountain from Salt Lake. But anyways, so I think about how treacherous it is. And like you said, people had to use guide ropes to guide them around. And the Wendigo, are you familiar with the Wendigo? Oh, she's froze up now. Anyways, I'm just going to tell the story of the Wendigo. The Wendigo is a hunger demon. It's you're back.
I am. I know I keep freezing. I turned off my home Wi-Fi, so hopefully that should.
Okay. Are you familiar with the Wendigo?
I'm, I wouldn't say that it's my most researched thing, but from my understanding of it, I think it's the equivalent of a werewolf, and there's, different names for it. I know the Athabascan people, they have their own name for it. It's kind of the same creature. What they were saying is it's known in Cree, I think, the most. It's like Ojibwe. I don't know if I'm saying that right, but it's Ojibwe. And that translates to the Wendigo. So I know that there are different things, like here in the Athabascan, it's called the Wechuga or Wechug, I think.
Mm-hmm.
So there's, and this is the same thing, right? With all of the cryptid stuff, us white people are like, oh, it's a myth, it's a legend. But to the natives, it's very, very real. And what I have found through what little research I've done is that even if you have something that, Bigfoot, it's a very, very easy one, Bigfoot, right? Through all cultures, all areas. You have there's the Yeti, there's the Bigfoot, there's different breeds, different kinds.
The redheaded
They're the
brother.
same
That's because
creature.
Bigfoot's real. We just need to admit it. Bigfoot's real.
I honestly think it's real. And there is actually an article that just came out recently about how they believe that horseback riding is the way to find the Bigfoots, because apparently the horse covers up your smell, and the um they think that the Bigfoot somehow, not only do they smell you, but they hear you and all this stuff. So if you're very quiet and let the horse take you to where they are, supposedly that's how you find them. For me, I never really want to encounter one. I think they're terrifying because I've heard some really, really bad stories, from the Alaskan Native tribes about the Bigfoots. And it's the same thing where these tribes, these Native tribes from all sorts of different backgrounds, all sorts of different countries, they all come together and have the same story. And how is it that they all have the same story of these mythical cryptid creatures, even with different names?
Because they're real.
Because they're real, right?
That's it. I mean,
Just
you got
because...
Lovelock Cave. You've got the red-haired giants, the Nephilim, all that. I mean, there's reports of them from the Middle East. But anyways, the Wendigo. The Wendigo, and this is, here's where, so you said you got a head shrinker degree, and you also do some demonology.
Yes.
To the natives, the Wendigo is explained as a possession. Much like Cleesburg. Do you know who Cleesburg was?
No, I've never heard of Cleesburg.
He's the guy who reportedly on the Donner Reed party, even after the rescue missions came, kept eating people.
Ew.
Yeah.
Must like the meat, like Jeffrey Dahmer.
He got a taste for it. Yeah, Jeffrey Dahmer. Jeffrey Dahmer is the epitome of Wendigo. Okay. Long and thin. Okay, so Wendigo, there was actually reported of a trial of a Wendigo in Canada in like 1860. A
neat.
Jesuit priest came into the main camp, the main fort, and said, look, one of my parishioners ate his whole family. He was like 4 miles away, easily reachable away from the little satellite town that the Jesuit priest was placed in. He said, but he ate his whole family. Had like 4 kids, a wife, native guy. He ate his whole family. He killed and ate the baby first, and then continuously killed and ate all the rest. And so they tried him for cannibalism and gross whatever. They didn't call it Wendigo, but the native guy, the guy was a Native North American, a First Nation. He claimed he was a Wendigo at the trial. Now, I haven't been able to find any records on this trial. Not any like clear records. Like back then, we don't have newspaper articles. We don't have things like that. But if I go to the Victoria Daily Times, 28 October, 1899, Winnipeg, October 27, 2 Indians accused of shooting their chief last winter at Cat Lake, about 350 miles northeast of Dinorwee, have been brought here. The story told by the 2 prisoners is essentially as follows. Now, this is a newspaper article, and you can find this. I'll post it in the notes.
Okay.
The chief of the Cat Lake Indians, called Awasakimig, I'm just going to screw it up. And they even got it spelled out with dashes, so even a moron like me could read it, and I'm still too moronish, became a Wendigo, or insane, and ordered the prisoners to shoot him. A council of tribes was called, and they discussed the matter for 2 days. When they arrived at the conclusion that the chief's orders would have to be obeyed, the Wendigo lay down in its wigwam and indicated with its hand where they were to shoot him. After he was dead, wood was heaped upon his body, and the fire kept going for 2 days, thereby, according to the belief of the Indians, thoroughly destroying the evil spirit of their chief. And then those two guys they just announced they're set to be tried here. You know.
Hmm. That's interesting.
So a Wendigo it's different than a werewolf or
Yeah, I mean, it is because they think that it's more of a possession with an evil spirit, right?
yeah. Well, the werewolf you got the werewolf and the loup-garou, and depending on where you're from is what changes. Whether it's a self-sought or a curse or an article of clothing that changes the name and the inflection of that. The Wendigo is, as we explained in an earlier show, a greed demon, a greed, a hunger, a desire. So they compared it's kind of to the natives, it's an allegory of to not be greedy in winter, to not hoard all the food and let the people around you starve, which is how they explain it, which, I guess that's if you're worried about someone else in the tribe becoming a Wendigo, but they say that's being a Wendigo is being greedy. But it's like if someone gets to where their Jeffrey Dahmer, their sick desires overcome them, and then they eat a loved one or a family member. It's usually not just eating human flesh. It's usually they eat a loved one. And
that's so, oh gosh, isn't that terrible though? Like, I can't even imagine one eating somebody, but then having to eat somebody that I'm familiar with. It's kind of like any kind of death. It's really, and you'll find this with serial killers, right? Like, or not even serial killers, but somebody that comes into a hospital and they're going to shoot up people. They say to scream out to them, like, I have a mother, I have 5 children, I have this, because it makes you more real to them.
Tell
because
them your
now
name.
you're a person, right?
Tell them your name, introduce yourself, become a human to them.
Yeah, become a human to them. And so how do you become a human to somebody that already knows you? They know everything about you.
Well, another Donner Party story. Did you know that they labeled the body parts on the Donner Party?
I thought I don't know why, and maybe I'm thinking of that movie where they were on the plane, the Brazil, wasn't it Brazil?
Oh, yeah.
Where they just turned them over so they didn't know their face and just ate their butts.
Yeah. Just
I remember that
straight up ate butt. I never saw that movie, but the Donner Party, I'm just going to say it like their meat, when they processed the person, they labeled who it came from so that family members could avoid eating family.
It's not a bad idea.
Yeah.
I know too. And there is a person, this was in the news a while back, where they had a motorcycle accident. And they had to amputate the leg. And he said, I would like my leg back. He got his leg back, which I don't know how he managed to do that, because I think that
Is this a guy that made it into tacos and served it to his friends?
Yeah, but he told him, like, hey, this is a once in a lifetime thing. If you would like to try human meat, like, he didn't force it on anybody.
Would you?
And it's not like, but then there's the thing of like,
would you do it? Would you have had a taco? Maybe just a little.
I'm an adventurous eater, so probably I might have had a nibble, but
Jerry, you taste very nice today.
No, I can taste. Did you have some Old Spice that day?
Pass the salt. You're dry.
I heard though it's kind of like very sweet. I don't know, like, or like chicken. They say it tastes a lot like chicken.
What if human meat is the very best tasting meat? Like, ridiculous.
It very well could be to many cannibalistic things. Like, I remember watching a movie, I think called Nate and Hayes back in the day. and they were dealing with cannibals. And I'm just like, but to them, that's normal. That's the way that culture has been since the dawn of time, probably.
Do you like Jameson whiskey?
I have heard that story.
Yeah, that's a
and no, I
wild
don't.
story, isn't it? Isn't that
It's a
wild that
story.
he bought a
It's
slave
true.
girl and gave her to cannibals so that he could sketch?
Ugh, that's the worst.
That's awful. But anyways, so we go back to the Wendigo. So when they get this possession, their body elongates and they kind of shrivel up like a corpse, you know, like they become emaciated, but in most stories they get taller. Now, the antlers, that's Stephen King. Stephen King added that in for Pet Sematary. I don't know why.
I don't remember a Wendigo in Pet Sematary.
It's in
Was
the
that
book.
in the movie?
It's in the book.
It's in the book.
It stalks around the outside of the forest in the book.
I mean, it would make sense since the Pet Cemetery was on a tribal thing. I would understand. They should have put that in the movie. That would have been amazing.
Yeah, I have a feeling with a lot of Stephen King books, they leave a lot out for the movie. Generally having to do with pedophilia.
Because I think in the book, they all had sex with that girl just so they would lose their virginity before they went into that.
Yeah, could you imagine that in the movie? You know?
Oh, gosh.
Yeah.
Yeah, no, I don't.
Stephen King's, I don't know how come no one's asking him about, dude, can you tone it down on your child sex? Please.
Well, and the way that he develops his stories, I heard, is because he is a dreamer. Like, that's how I dream. I dream very vividly and I write them down. And sometimes they are so funny. Ryan and I keep a journal. And one day Ryan and I were just like reading through them and we were dying laughing at what I had wrote. Like there was one where I was like, I was in a warehouse with Danny DeVito and then it caught on fire and we ended up in the lake in a bear cave. Like it was weird stuff.
Danny DeVito shows up in the dream.
Yeah, I know. Oh. I have some funny ones. Like I don't know. I don't know what I'm doing when I'm dreaming, but it is. And sometimes it's based off like what we watch. They'll be like, "What'd you watch last night?" And I'm like, "Well, I watched this." So it kind of makes sense. I have that dream, but
yeah. Well,
the worst was, you remember when 28 Days Later just came out, the zombie movie, and I had watched that. I watched it late at night.
That was like the first. Wasn't that like the first or second kind of running zombie movie?
I don't remember. It was either. I know was I watched it alone, and I was visiting my grandma, and I always stayed in my bedroom. My bedroom faced the street, and I went to bed that night just thinking, "Oh my gosh, the zombies are going to come! They're going to come! They're going to come!" And I covered up my head, and I'm just sitting there terrified. And all of a sudden, there's this bang on my window. And I screamed, and then it was my ex-boyfriend from high school. He's like, "I just saw your truck outside and thought maybe you'd be." Like I was just driving by, like 5 years after high school, and
I think that movie. Okay, so you had like Day of the Dead, Dawn of the Dead, all those were the stumbling, mumbling zombie movies. It was either
but
28.
Some of them change, right? Like the George Romero one, I think the very last one, like the zombie.
Well, I'm talking in the timeline.
Yeah.
Of when they came out. I think either 28 Days Later or what was that one with Will Smith?
Oh, that one was about vampires.
Yeah, they were kind of vampires, but it kind of had the same. But I think 28 Days Later was the first running zombie movie, and that's why it had such an effect because, I mean, what do you do when they're running like that? When they mob you like that instead of just, I
can't even run to my mailbox.
Yeah.
I don't know how I would make it in that kind of world.
I don't know. I would make sure I had on some very nice fresh clothes so that while I was a zombie, I at least look good. Because that's what would happen.
I mean, yeah, that's true. That would be nice to just kind of be walking around in like a flowing ethereal gown. I could kind of get that.
Gown. I would be
like,
thinking,
what's going to be my ghost, my living dead girl ghost body?
What's zombie comfort clothes? I'm putting on some gin shorts, some good running shoes. But anyways, so and then the Wendigo gets overcome with that hunger. Just that's all it does,
Mm-hmm.
and it becomes an extreme hunter. So it's
Mm-hmm.
possessed by. So I don't know. We I think early Christians brought the thoughts of possession into this, where reading about it, it sounds like the natives thought of it more as a mental issue, more as a psychosis. And
Mm,
they
could
called
be.
it he was possessed by the psychosis, but I think just when you read all the native accounts, they they always won. They lay blame. They don't lay blame. They set accountability on the person who becomes the Wendigo, which is
Mm-hmm.
why I think they look at it like a mental condition, like Jeffrey Dahmer had a mental condition that made him want to, you know, eat people.
You know, and my question is are they completely blacking out, or are they aware of what they're doing it, and is it a compulsion that they just can't stop?
Well, that's the question
Um,
because we don't have reports of
mm-hmm.
people who go to Wendigoism coming out of it. I think the
Yeah, and
last,
I mean, even if you did, how would you even really know? Because you don't know if these people are just crazy and making it up, or that would be a really hard thing. And obviously, like if they come into a psych unit or something like that, you'd probably just be like, oh, okay, they're mentally nuts. Um, because how would you test for that? I don't know if putting them maybe in an MRI machine,
shock
seeing how their
therapy.
brain function is when you pull out some fresh human meat, maybe
Shock
does it
therapy.
activate certain parts of the brain that you aren't aware of? Like, how does that work? It's
You do
very
shock
interesting.
therapy. You do it with 110 volts for an hour and a half. You know, shock therapy.
But
But
this
no,
brings me to a thought too, in that what do we do when a dog, an animal, right, when it has had human meat, we put it down. We
mm-hmm.
don't do anything about it. We just put it down, because once they have tasted it, they have a taste for it and they keep going after it.
Well, that and the animals cross the line. How do you
Mm-hmm.
do that? But was so okay. The last reports of actual Wendigos, um, there was a town in Minnesota. Okay, so Wendigo comes from the Algonquin tribe, which is in
Mm-hmm.
Canada, into the Great Plains and over to the Great Lakes. So it's kind of there around the Great Lakes, and it goes from all above the Great Lakes, trimming the east side of it, coming down south into the plains, and then coming out west before it hits like maybe halfway into the Dakotas. And so the last story we had comes from a town Rasuman or something in um, Wisconsin, and this was in 1955 through I think 1961. There kept being reports of Wendigos, and every time they would hear of a sighting, someone else would die. So it's kind of like the Mothman story, you know.
Mm-hmm.
So they'd a Wendigo was spotted, and then someone would die. So it could have been, just misremembering and timelines together incorrectly and things like that. But earlier reports, and especially reports coming from the natives, um, they don't have any. They do have some supernatural to him. You know, he
Mm-hmm.
became emaciated, which could be because natives commonly found people who maybe were dislocated from their community, half starved, half crazy, dealing with the cold way too much, and maybe crazy enough to just want to eat someone, and they just called them Wendigos. Because
Could
it's a
be.
winter monster. It's a monster of the winter. It's a monster of the cold, of the frozen, of you're out of food and you're dying of starvation and hunger. It's a
So
hunger
do you
demon.
think that that's the only time that it comes out is just in winter, if that's the case? Or do you think that this is something that just stays with them even after winter?
Well, it sounds like, well, let's be honest. 150 years ago, someone eating people, uh, though I say this, except under extraordinary circumstances, generally capital punishment was handed out a little freer than it is now.
True.
Except Cleesburg went on to open a restaurant in San Francisco. Everyone just let that sink in for a minute. Cleesburg, the Donner Party cannibal, opened a restaurant in San Francisco after the Donner Party was over.
Hmm.
So, but then he also sued people for saying he was a cannibal and won. So I don't know. Where do you split that hair?
Yeah,
He won
that's
he
a hard
won a
one to.
what was it? Like in 1867 he won a defamation lawsuit against people saying that he ate people. Well, against people saying that he continued to eat people after the Donner Party was over, after the rescue parties had come. But that could have also been mixed up after. But there are reports of Jim Reed was going to kill him because Jim Reed was on the second relief party and came in and he was still eating people. The first relief party had brought them food. So they shouldn't have had to eat any more people. Also, it was starting to thaw and they had killed, I think, 2 deer right when the relief party came. Like the husband and wife, their older couple, went out and killed a deer and they're coming back and they're like, hey, everyone's going to love us. We're going to be the heroes. We got this deer. They show up and someone had brought food. And so it's a crazy story. But anyways, so that's the question. The Wendigo, is it a mental issue? Is it a demon possession? Is there an ice demon that waits and when you're hungry, you're susceptible? And also you do demonology, so this might be a part of it. But then again, that leads into more questions like would regular demons, would that apply universally across cultures? You'd think it would, right?
Well, I think it does. I think we just have different names for it in different, character, like not so much characteristics, but I think we have different names and different things. Like some people are like, well, it's what do you call it? Like how we were talking earlier, some people say, well, it's more like a werewolf, and some people are more like, well, it's more like this and it's more like that. Because I don't think that they really have a good understanding because they haven't really encountered one and they're hearing passed down traditions, word of mouth things. But one of the things too that I've heard is that this only happens to people who are naturally medicine men, and that they can go one of two ways.
Well, that's how the Skinwalker story goes.
Mm-hmm.
The Wendigo, that guy that was actually tried for it, he was just he was a farmer that kind of had been absorbed into the white community. He lived in a farm just on the outskirts of town.
Yeah.
So, I know that the Skinwalker, it's a choice. They choose to go down that path of medicine. Like even if you want to go back into, say, wizards and witches, or I don't know if that's the correct term, but back in Europe, they could choose to go down a, a positive angle, or they could go dark.
Yeah, and that's the case for, I would say, everybody is naturally a healer, or not so much a healer, but naturally we are all able to be creators.
Mm-hmm.
And the world that we create can either be good or bad. It can be influenced by what we bring into it that's good and bad. It can be influenced by what we decide to create that is good and bad.
Mm-hmm.
And I'll admit, sometimes there are times where I can go really, really dark when I get really pissed. I try not to do that because I think that that actually takes away some of your life. And I think that's how you get the old hags.
Oh,
um,
well, I would say
I,
that's everyone. It's
mhm.
you might do good and bad in a single day, you
You
know.
could, you very well could. And also, you know, what one person thinks is good, another person thinks is bad. There's no real clear definition other than the fact that we should all be loving one another. Like that we all know
Mm.
is universally good. But people's ideas of love, that's even different. Look at those women who refuse to leave a, you know, battered domestic violence situation because they believe that's love. So it's very, I wish that it was clear cut. Like we have what we believe is good and we believe is bad. But there's also a thin gray line, you know, of what is it? And it's very subjective. Obviously, killing somebody, that's not great. We shouldn't be doing that. But then you have, what do I do if somebody breaks into my home? You're still killing somebody if you decide to fight back. So are you now good or are you bad because you've killed somebody? If the ultimate thing is not to kill,
I don't
it's very subjective.
I my religion, if you will, doesn't have a thou shalt not kill written into
Yeah.
it. It has a, you know, don't be a dick and instigate violence.
True.
But it does have a clause written in there that if violence comes, be the most violent.
Yeah.
Be
Yeah.
the
And I'm the same way.
be the extreme.
Yeah, I would be very afraid of me, as Ryan would say.
Good. Good. And that's honestly, I think a much better way of living life than you know, just letting whatever happen. But yeah,
Now, have you heard of the Manitua or Manitou, I think it is, which is supposed to be the opposite of the Wendigo?
Manitou, I have
It
not.
Yeah, so it's Manitou, and it's basically the very opposite. So if you have the
It's a
Wendigo, which
it's
is
a
the evil
thirst
spirit,
monster. It's super thirsty.
and they believe too, like I was just kind of glancing at this, but they say that when you go and embark on your vision quest, you know, with your prayer, your fasting, any hallucinogenics and all of that stuff, you are calling on your guardian spirit as well as the Manitua. And this is Algonquin religion.
Algonquin, yeah,
So
that's where the Wendigo comes from. You got the
yeah, so this is the
Wetiko,
opposite.
Wedigo. They all kind of sound the same, but the
Yeah.
Algonquin is the Wendigo.
Yes. So in this one, you can, instead of eating people, you can see the future, you can change weather, you can heal illness. It's primarily used by healers and to get a spiritual connection to cure patients. Um, so that one's actually really, really interesting.
Well,
And
my
you know,
question
we
is, here's okay. Here's my question of it. Does it say in there? Does it say that the Manitua? Okay, is the Manitua, was it around in, you know, early Algonquin traditions, or is it, not to offend anyone, one of the modern makey uppy things? Not makey uppy.
I'm gonna just read this sentence here or two and we'll figure it out. But it says the term, already in widespread use at the time in early European contact, was used in 1585 when Thomas Harriot recorded the first glossary of the Algonquin, I can't say that word, but language. Roanoke, he included the word Mantoic, meaning gods. Similar terms found in early in nearly all of their Algonquian languages. So, and it refers to the great spirit or the supreme being who helps people get their, like with the medicine man, the vision quest, and all of that. And it's a healing guardian spirit, which is the opposite of the Wendigo.
Okay, I would like, send me that link. I'd like to look in it more later. Because
Okay.
it says Roanoke and Algonquin. Algonquin was by the Great Lakes. Roanoke was, the Roanoke Indians were in Virginia. But then the Roanokes, as far as I remember, went further inland because they were being threatened by a different tribe. So they went and lived with a third tribe that was their homeboy tribe.
Yeah, that was just on Wikipedia, but it was
okay.
It was, you know, an interesting, quick little.
Yeah, I'll have to check it out because I'm still torn. I don't know if the Wendigo's a monster or if it is what the natives called because let's face it, cannibalism I don't think is trapped to one race, to one gender. I think cannibalism is a universal evil and also something that universally happens.
Just quick question. Speaking of cannibalism, I know that there's very many men that have been, you know, to prison and all of that, tried for being cannibals. Other than like the Donner Party, have you ever heard of a woman who has been tried for that?
Would you call, what was her name? Not Anne Boleyn. Was it Anne Boleyn?
Anne Boleyn was Henry VIII's wife.
No, who was the Bloody Mary? Was it Bloody Mary?
I don't know. I thought that was just a folklore.
No, there was a British queen who was killing peasant girls.
Oh, yeah. No, but she wasn't eating them, was she? She was just using their blood in baths.
She drank some blood and did some other things.
I mean, that's more ritualistic. I think.
Hey.
I mean, not that I would drink blood, but I don't think
I'm just going to throw this out there. If you're trying to enrich your physical body or enrich your soul, it's still cannibalism.
Okay, well.
I see cannibalism as agreed so far as to want to kill another person to utterly consume them.
Yeah, I mean, it's definitely sacrificial, especially like that. That seems more sacrificial. I don't know. That's kind of a tough one. Yeah, that's a hard one. I mean, I just would think like, why can't you just ask women during their menses, especially when they're young, like just save up your blood and give it to me? I mean, not to be gross, but a lot easier than killing somebody.
Oh, sorry guys.
Hey, if that's life and you're going to be sacrificial and using it for rubbing it on yourself, it just seems easier. Leave it to me to say gross stuff, right?
Oh my gosh. That's usually my job. You took it there. You went to the deep end of the pool.
Yeah,
dove right in.
I did.
Didn't put on the little arm muscles or nothing. Just jumped right in.
You know. I think about the craziest stuff. Now, and Ryan's like, Sarah,
I will say this. Okay. There are probably women cannibals. Probably women cannibals alive today.
Probably.
There are women serial killers. Probably women serial killers alive today. But not to be a sexist pig, but women on average exist in a short spectrum. While men exist on a huge bell curve. Men will contain the extremes, which is why you see more serial killers in men, more violence in men, all of that, because they live in the extremes. All the studies done, men have, the highest IQs are possessed by men, but so are the lowest IQs.
Well, that could all go to education and then pushing men to get tested and women not being tested as much. There's
No,
so many things that could
no,
go into that.
all the evidence right now, women are obtaining, I think it's 63 to, it's like 63% of the education is focused towards females. No, what it has to do with is genetics and history.
Mm-hmm.
If you have throughout history, polygamy, maybe women just hide it better, Lori says. No, it's because no society has ever practiced bigamy, female polygamy, and been successful. The closest we got are the Sherpas in Nepal, and they're dying because a woman can only reproduce once a year. So they can't replace themselves. If you got a one woman, 7 husbands, there's no chance that they'll ever replace themselves.
True, but maybe chores would actually get done.
Sure. I'm sure they might actually get done. I'm sure. Whereas polygamy is a negative net on society, but the society can thrive because a man can reproduce every day.
Several women at once. Yeah. I mean, even up to like your death, you guys can still do it, which, I'm still kind of jealous about.
That is true. That is true. So I think because of those circumstances, we look historically, lots of civilizations have practiced polygamy where a small percentage of men got to reproduce on the extremes. And I think what that did is bled down into written in the genes for men to push the limits, to try to break it to that reproduction. Yes, in our current society, it's becoming a problem by all studies, but it hasn't traditionally been a problem in the current civilization we live in.
Yeah.
The internet has changed that. It's reverting back to a modern weird polygamy with all the negative parts of polygamy for both sides and none of the positives. But so I think what that did is that pushed the extremes down to men so that men live further on the spectrums. They cover more of the spectrum. And it's not a negative thing towards men or towards women. It's just, the round peg and the round hole, and it all fits.
It's true. And that is a good point. I think too, we have now where women are starting to be a lot more independent and a lot more masculine in that aspect of I'm going to take what I want and not care because I am tired of being pushed down by the male society who tells me that I need to be this little feminine thing that, just sits in the kitchen and doesn't do anything and talks really soft and just has babies. We're getting to where now as a female, we're just kind of done taking everybody's shit. And it'll be interesting to see. I don't think that women are any less intelligent than men. And I think that there's going to be women that come out to be more intelligent. But I think that has to do with.
I'm talking about the edges, the extremes on the edges.
Right. No, and I get that. But I think that what's going to end up happening is we're going to see this shift of where the extremes have shifted to where the women are starting to be a lot more and the men are starting to be the ones that are more submissive.
You can do that, but then we may as well kiss the human species goodbye.
It is. It probably will do that.
Why is it? Why would it be bad to have the female of the species be the extrovert, adventurous ones?
I think all it has to do is just baby making if we want to keep population up. However,
okay,
we're at a
let's say
we need to actually depopulate.
We're on depopulation right now. Did you know that?
Exactly.
Let me ask you this. Right now, we sit at, I think it was 7-1 on retiree to working person. Did you know that?
Mm-mm.
Yeah. That means 7 people pay to support the one person, because that's how our Social
Yeah.
Security is a Ponzi scheme. What happens if we continue to depopulate? What happens if we cross the boundary to where it's 4-1?
All I know is that and I've been saying this for a while, is we're getting ready for a really big shift, and it's not going to be a good one. And we're starting to see a lot. There's just a lot going on. And I think, not to go completely off subject, but we have like the CERN and all of this, which is like changing things.
You mean them bastards that keep popping out the Mandela effects every day? Something new. They turn it on.
Yeah, like, did you see the new one with what was the guy who used to do The Price is Right? Bob Barker.
Oh yeah, Bob Barker.
I thought he was dead. Everybody thought he was dead, and now all of a sudden he's celebrating a birthday,
like his 100th birthday or something.
Ed McMahon never worked for Publishers Clearinghouse.
I know. Everyone says the Bernstein Bears. I don't remember that. I didn't read them as kids. One, because I was that bell curve we talked about. I was on the dumb side of that bell curve, out in the extreme that couldn't read. But Ed McMahon, I remember.
I remember
with the great big check.
Being really pissed he wouldn't bring her the check.
It's crazy.
So we have just this weird thing that's going on right now, and I think it's going to end up being where women are going to be the extreme ones, and I think that it's not going to be a very good thing.
Well, if they do,
I don't think it's good for the men to be extreme either. Quite honestly, it'd be nice if we were all kind of like at a medium.
Well, okay, let me. I'm a bit of a history buff. It was the extremes that brought us to where we are.
Mm-hmm.
Without the extreme people, your life would be grueling and miserable. Even if you were the stay-at-home wife to your husband, whose life was probably a little bit more grueling and miserable. It's those extreme people. The flip side to the serial killer is the guy with the same aptitudes that sailed across oceans.
Yeah.
That invented the internal combustion engine, that pasteurized milk, that invented penicillin, that took apart dead bodies to figure out what happened to people and how to stop it. So without those extremes, whether they're men or women, but without those extremes, imagine how grueling our life would be. One, we would have never met because there would be no internet.
That's true.
There would be no satellites. There'd be no cars. There'd be none of that.
Were you part of that big blackout last week? Because we had like nothing for 12 hours. It was 20 degrees outside.
Really?
For 12 hours, we did not have any electricity, no heat, nothing. Now we do have a generator.
Are you heated? Are you electric heat?
Yes.
Oh,
yeah. We don't have a fireplace, nothing like that. So, it was hell. And I had COVID, so I'm like just kind of like couldn't sleep because they had me on penicillin, and I was just a mess. Or not penicillin, prednisone. Sorry. And
they put you on prednisone for your COVID?
I just kept thinking, if they send out one of them electrical things that like blocked the grid into the air, we would
EMP?
be so screwed.
I'd like to do an EMP show. I'm knee deep into that apocalypse stuff. Oh, that's I love reading about. But there's a reason why we are where we are. And different. And if you're a community culture, on average, in mammals, the alpha and the extremes are males because you can afford to lose them.
Mm-hmm.
There's a reason why our militaries traditionally have been stocked with nothing but Johns.
That makes sense.
Because you can afford to lose that.
Yeah.
The females, if you're losing them, you need to start writing the tribe off.
Now that makes a lot of sense. It's interesting though, in the animal kingdom, though, it's the women who are the main.
In solitary species.
Yes.
In
And, you
solitary
know,
species, the women are generally bigger and stronger. In
mm-hmm,
bears,
yeah,
in mammals, in live birth giving critters, in solitary species, the women are the dominant in the extremes.
females, I think, but yeah.
Yeah, the females are. But in
I think the women
community
are.
species, which humans could not survive as a solitary species,
Mm-hmm.
we require too
Yeah,
many calories to
we
feed this thing
do.
that's on top of our neck.
I'm at this place right now where I'm so kind of like over having the inner. I mean, I don't get me wrong. I think it's great. We need to get on there, do some things. It's quick, it's easy. The problem is now we've become a society who's so into being on their phone all the time. We don't important moments. What are we doing? We're all on our phones. And
So,
I'm kind of right now in this headspace of like, I want to get not necessarily completely off the grid, but to where my grid is a lot more limited. And I'm growing my own food. I'm not having to deal with a lot of people. The people that I have around me are the people I love.
mhm.
And we're working as a cohesive community and on my little farm, with my little miniature donkey. Um, that's kind of what I'm looking for. And I don't know, like it's hard because we do need a lot of what society has in order just to get by.
Oh, I know that I'm a fairly hardy person. You know, I know you
Mm-hmm.
drag me back to the 1920s life in Utah. I don't know if I'm hardy enough for that. But I mean, this is a cultural thing that we've drifted into, and it'd be cool to
Yeah.
do a show on that, on how, um, to be honest about, this is one thing that no one has done. The cultural revolution that feminism brought, no one has, okay, some people have, but not in general, in their silence, have taken an honest look at the negative effects of it.
Yeah. I think that's a very interesting thing. And I think that you make some really excellent points.
And I'm not
Definitely
saying
some
it's
stuff I
bad.
didn't think about.
I'm not saying it's bad, but there are
Yeah,
trade-offs in every decision in life, right?
it really is.
You know, like if you choose to not drink water and drink coffee, you're going to piss hot orange. It's
Yeah.
just the way life works. And the trade-offs, and this isn't to offend, but the same time women entered the workforce, you know how you always hear how wages haven't increased?
Mm-hmm.
Look at the date, wages stopped increasing. Because supply and demand dominates all markets.
Yeah.
And if you supply more workers, well, competition just gets harder. Wages don't increase.
Yeah, that's
And that's
true.
not a negative effect. I'm not saying that women shouldn't have entered the workforce. I'm saying people back then, when it started happening, said this was going to happen.
Yeah.
For some reason,
And
we don't
that
remember.
is true. I think my hard part with it is just as a woman, it's hard being told you can't do something because your brain is smaller, which it is by weight. They've dissected brains and they know that women's brains are not as much weight as a
Well,
man's brain.
okay.
But
All right. But women's brains have more neural connections. Man brain have more of that fatty white tissue.
yeah, and we are able to deal a lot more with the emotional stuff where,
Well, you can
men
multi-purpose.
can't. Where exactly we can
You can do two
multitask. There's
things at
there's so many
once.
things. And I think about like these women, um, you know, if they were just told you're a woman, you can't do that. What Madame Curie, right? She wouldn't have found, the thing that killed her.
I don't think
And
that
then
happened as much as people say it did.
probably not,
I
but
think
then you
I
have,
honestly I think
Florence Nightingale.
that is a rumor that came out of what is called the second wave feminists.
Yeah.
Because I don't think that women were held back. Yes, legally there were some holdbacks, but I don't think the average person, and I think legally there were holdbacks for multiple reasons. One, having the legal options also meant you had the legal responsibilities, and nobody wanted to put women in prison.
Yeah,
Right?
that's true.
And
I mean, there's some
if
stuff that I'm glad they changed. Like, I'm glad that women can own property now. And if your spouse dies, you don't automatically have to give it to the next of kin who is a male. Like, can you imagine losing your entire house and you have 5 daughters because the next kin is like a male nephew?
It could
and
be.
Being told the only thing
It
you're
could be,
good for
but
is being pregnant.
there was also some things that people ignore about that time.
Yeah.
One,
I mean,
that
there's, you know,
that
it's
rarely
anything, right? You
happened.
have to weigh it.
That rarely, if ever, happened. And two,
Yeah.
that person that the property went to became financially responsible for the widow and the children.
Yeah.
And that's something.
I don't know, but it would be hard having to answer to somebody else.
I mean, who wrote Frankenstein's monster?
Mary Shelley, right?
Yeah.
Young teenage girl.
Women weren't always held back as much as the myths claim.
They aren't. They weren't. But there is still this.
Hell, the women got alcohol banned in this country for 20 years. Honestly, it was more like 7.
Drinking more fun. Thank you.
Yeah, ruined this country for 7 years.
Don't do it. It makes the party better.
But anyways, let's go through some comments real quick. This is good stuff. I'd like to get into this one day with you because I am a history maniac. And
yeah, it's fun just having a community where you can just say whatever you want and there's no right or wrong answer, and it's just I'm not pissed at you for saying anything, and you're not pissed at me. It's just
for me I think we should be able to call balls and stripes.
Yeah, it's crazy how you can't have a conversation with somebody just like this and they're like, you're argumentative and being mean to me.
Yeah.
And there's no egg through a hose.
And there's no judgment in what either of us are saying.
Exactly.
All right. King of Wakamundo says, what are your thoughts on a Chinese scientist saying the Terminator movie was based on a real event? Skynet computer system exists and has different names in government. Okay, one, King, it's not the Terminator movie. It's the Terminator biography is how it should be called. If this craziness hasn't happened in our simulation, it just means it hasn't happened yet.
Well, actually, no, they have had some androids that they've made recently that they find have started changing their programming to develop their own thoughts and all this stuff. I mean,
we get time travel. If we get a naked muscle man to fly in a ball of light through time and land behind a dumpster and take clothes away from bikers, we'll have completed the cycle. But yeah,
I don't know. There's something about those android things that they're working with, and they just freak me out.
Oh,
I don't see anything good about it. I don't. Yeah.
I know. We're inventing our killer. I get it. I'm with you. Mm-hmm. I'm trying to think, how am I going to stop an android? How do you do it?
What, I'm 40 something now, and if I live another 40 years, like, I don't want to be living through that crap. Just stop doing it. You wait till I'm dead, and then you all can have fun with that.
But it may be the only answer to survive the population collapse that's coming on us right now, and it's hitting everywhere in the world. Nowhere is safe. All right. King says in The Walking Dead, the zombies were learning. That goes back to our conversation about learning zombies. And I haven't seen Walking Dead in so long. I've seen 28 Days Later.
Finished the series, and he is right. They are in the end. They're starting to learn how to climb and to do things that they never have done before.
See,
but it makes sense if viruses change, right? That's what we find has happened. Viruses change.
So we get a learning virus.
So
What
they
happens?
mutate.
What happens when some bastard trying to make a virus stronger to do tests on it makes a zombie virus, cuts it loose on the world, and next
I
thing you
think it's
know,
already happened, quite honestly.
I'm gonna have to get me uh uh like a, I don't know, an 81 Z28, paint it black, put a blower on it, get a double barrel shotgun to wear on my hip, and find an oil refinery to live at.
So if you can research this, I'm not going to go into the full detail on it, but along kind of like from Florida up through Colorado, just like that wave, and they believe it's coming out of Florida State University, I think, but it's one of those, definitely University of Florida. They think that this is what's happening with biotechnology, is that they are creating a drug that essentially it's like bath salts, right? Kind of fries your brain. You take it, you get super hot, you take off all your clothes, you don't really know what you're doing. And they had where this guy had taken, I think if you just look up Miami cannibal attack, because
Oh,
this is the
yeah.
most famous one, you know,
Yeah.
where the guy was pulled out. He was a homeless man pulled out from under the bridge. People watched this from the building. The police
Yeah.
came, shot the guy like 6 times as he was eating the other guy's face off. He just growled at them and kept on eating. That is not a normal drug reaction, even if it is an
Well,
overdose. That is
angel
something that
dust.
was created in a lab for to be used on, you know, and they're testing it. They're testing it on the populations that people aren't going to really care about.
Angel dust can do that. Now there are bath salts. That stuff's, yeah, man.
Mm-hmm.
Is it coming out of the University of Miami though? Bath salts have been around for a while.
They think that's where they are doing the biotechnology to do the what do you call it? Changing the rhythm of these drugs and these street things zombies. Are going out, because they think what they're going to end up doing is handing it out to the military. So it's a self-destruction for whatever population they give it to.
You know what, guys? Pick your documentary, be it Walking Dead, The Road Warrior. That's one I'm going to choose because awesome cars. Original Road Warrior, not the new one. Though the new one has awesomer cars, but the original one, I kind of like it better. It's, you know, kind of grittier. Yeah, pick your apocalypse and train for it, I guess. Oh, all right.
Yeah. Wasn't there was a show too where they would say, well, I'm preparing for this, and they would give them like this is your PSR if you were to survive, like, because you need to learn how to filter your water more.
Preppers.
Yes,
I love that show.
Like, they're always thinking about one thing, and I'm like, no, you gotta look at the whole thing.
Okay.
You have to prepare for everything.
There was one show, I forget the name of it, but I'll dig it up, where they had a group of people that lived in a place. They had only had 2 seasons, and it went through a whole season. They started with nothing and had to try to escape. And there was a NASA scientist that was a part of the first group. And this guy was awesome. He built a wood gasifier truck. They had another guy that did a lot with solar panels. And then they had actors that acted like reavers that would come and attack you and try to steal your stuff. I don't know. I'll have to remember it and post it somewhere, talk to you about it. All right. Lori says, maybe women just hide it better. In my opinion, this is Lori. In my opinion, the feminist movement did more harm than good. Okay.
I sadly agree with that.
What's that?
I sadly, as a woman, I feel like it's wrong for me to say, but I kind of agree with that.
You know, that's a big movement lately. That is a tough question. I think it's, again, trade-offs.
Mm-hmm.
I don't know whether it was good or bad.
I just like the idea of being equal partners. And I know that there are a lot of trade-offs, good, bad, like you're saying.
Yeah.
But I just hate the thought of somebody telling me you can't do something because you're a woman. That bugs me. It pisses me off. And it honestly pushes me to do things that I probably should just like ignore, because I'm one of those people where if you tell me, well, you can't wash dishes, like, you're a woman, right? That's the best way to actually encourage me to clean.
So Ryan, take notes. You can't cook me a steak every night this week, medium rare, with garlic butter on top. You can't do it. No, you can't. Bam, eating
Yeah,
steak.
no, he knows this about me, and he's like, Sarah, no, you don't have to, because I'll tell you, like anybody when they tell me anything like that, he's like, oh damn it.
Well, that's because Ryan's a good guy. He's not going to take advantage of this Achilles heel you have. But no,
he's the best. He wouldn't.
I know he's too good. It's a trade-off.
Mm-hmm.
It's a trade-off whether I'm not going to say it's good or bad. I'm going to say that some parts were good, but also had a negative effect on the other side. And some parts were bad, but also had a positive effect on the other side.
Yeah.
I
think of, and this is just kind of, I'm talking about marriage specifically, but I think a lot of people are like, a woman, they read the Bible, let's just say, and a woman through society, you're supposed to be submissive and do what your husband says. For me, it's about having a king and queen who the king is always going to ask for the queen's opinion, and the king makes the ultimate decision based on what is best for the family, and the queen knows that the king is going to do what's best, right? It's not about, I'm the man and you're just going to stay home and do whatever I say. That's not how it was ever meant to be. And like you're saying, like there's something that happens where the extremist comes to play, and then all of a sudden it's, I'm going to be an extreme hard ass and tell you that you can't do anything and be very, very submissive. That's your only job now. And I don't know why they thought that would be so good to push women down that way, because we were meant to be more of an equal partnership of actually communicating and respecting each other.
Well, let's face it, men and women are more alike than different, but those differences complement each other.
Yeah.
Where women are better communicators, men are better focusing on one object at once. So men, on average, will get a better outcome of this one object. Just don't throw anything else in the mix. It'll break him.
Right.
And women are better at, they can multitask, such as, and I think that comes from our genetics. Women would have a baby on their hip and still have to do stuff.
Yeah, that's true.
And women are much better caregivers than men.
And I think it's so funny too, at least the men I know, when they get sick, they are such babies. I don't know what it is, or I'm like, or this is like the latest thing, with my dad, for example, like I'll say, can you boil water? Well, how do I boil water? Like, what? No, I know you know how to boil water. Come on.
He just wants you to do it for him?
He just wants me to do it for him. So he like plays this dumb thing. I don't know. It's weird. It's like when you have the make your own sandwich station. Well, how do I do this? I don't get it, but
make your own sandwich.
About, right? Yeah. You got your meat and your cheeses. Well, just make your own. Like,
yeah, make your own that sounds like it's going to be a triple meat day for me. Okay.
Probably be better than what I do, right? I know I'm on the Facebook one, and we have Robin says the feminist movement fell off the hinges for me with the first walking pink female genitals.
The first what?
Walking pink female genitals.
What is that?
I think maybe, I don't know, transgender. I'm guessing. Robin, you'll have to clarify. I don't know. She's also talking about how Elon Musk, she thought, was the time traveler.
he's Baron Trump. Okay, well let's I was gonna hit the Facebook here in a second, but Christy says, hello, hun. Congratulations, talking about your upcoming nuptials.
Did you see the thing about my ring though?
What about it?
Did you see that on Facebook? So he got me this beautiful ring. It's a Herkimer diamond, which is basically a quartz. It's a double hexagon quartz that you can only get in Herkimer, New York. So we special ordered this ring. He got it in silver because I just love silver. And so it's had these what do you call it? Like leaves that kind of connected on both sides.
Mm-hmm.
And first couple days, so first it came late in the mail because there was that big snowstorm back, east.
Mm-hmm.
So so I didn't get it till like after a week after he had actually asked me to marry him. Then the leaf part came off the solder where it was soldered, and it was coming up, so I'd have to push it back down. So then that broke off. So then I had to take it to the jeweler, and I'm like, hey, can you fix this for me? He puts it under the microscope and says, the guy that did this, he goes, honestly, you need to send it back to him because there's bubbles in the metal and there's a hairline fracture. So Ryan
Oh.
had to contact the guy, and now the guy has to, he's making it up to us by completely doing a new ring. We don't have to send it back, but that's kind of what happened. And it's so sad because it was just such a beautiful, the crystal itself was gorgeous. It's got like a gray line through it, and it's kind of smoky, and I love it. But yeah, that's kind of what happens.
Mm. Well, at
You had
least,
really bad luck there on that front.
well, you guys have time, right?
We do, yeah.
Yeah. So that's good news.
Yeah.
All right. I want to shout out Jackson. Happy birthday.
Happy
Jackson
birthday.
is 17 today. Robin says, oops, absolutely. Isn't that Elon Musk? She talking about the time traveler, the naked.
Yeah.
Yeah. See Elon pop out of the electric sphere, kneel down
But then,
naked.
how does he, if he is a time traveler, then how do you think that they somehow implant the memories and the photographs and all the stuff for like his family, like his mother?
I think Elon Musk is an alien. He is from Mars. Elon Musk got sent here on an egg from Mars when they thought Mars was going to be destroyed, and he grew up in an African cornfield just like Clark did, and he's just trying to get home. That's it.
I watched this movie the other day with Kevin Spacey. I can't remember the name of it. It was a really good movie. It's old. And he kind of had an alien enlightened being inside of him that he was like in this kind of like an insane asylum for the mental patients at the time because they didn't know what to think of him. He's going through all the psychiatry
But enough
treatment.
about Hollywood. Go on.
Yeah, I mean, that's kind of what I think is maybe he's got an enlightened being that kind of jumped into his brain.
He might be,
I don't know.
Okay, if he's not an alien or he's not an angel possession or he's not a time traveler, he is just one of those people that live on the other side of the bell curve.
Mm-hmm.
Just lives outside the edge. All right, we got 2 more comments and I got to let you go. I'm actually heading to dinner with Jax right after this.
Oh, fun.
Okay, King says, it would be crazy if everything happened now. If everything happened now is a computer program like Skynet. We're living in a simulation. We're living in a simulation. That's all it is. Now, what is this what was that walking pink thing? What was that?
I think it's about the men who are women, women who are men thing.
Okay.
Like Caitlyn Jenner. I could be wrong. I don't really know.
You're talking about the hats in the Democrat protest. So she's probably talking about the P-word hat protesters. Okay.
Oh, I didn't see that. I kind of stopped watching the news because it's the only thing that's ever on anymore.
That's what popped in is during Trump's, right after his inauguration.
Okay.
They were called the P-word hat protests.
That's weird.
And they would wear pink hats. Their hats looked like a beanie that was loose on top, like a Jamaican hat maybe. I don't know. I don't know what you'd call it. A sock that was sewn shut. Something, I don't know. Anyways.
Okay. I'll have to look that up.
Yeah. Yeah, it was a thing. King says the zombie deer has spread all over and has been used as the cause of a zombie apocalypse in several movies. Okay, yeah, the zombie deer, I'm a hunter. I get warnings of that every year building up to the hunt. I don't know what that means. Because I've never harvested a deer that I couldn't eat. Now I've harvested deer that had injuries on them that have turned kind of necrotic, but I've never harvested one that I couldn't consume. I've always
Is
been.
it? I thought that when it came to the zombies, it's not just deer that it's through like many populations now, but I thought it had more to do with it affecting the brain and making it where like they aren't doing the normal things like
Like rabies,
eating.
kinda.
Kind of not necessarily rabies, but it's like they just stop taking care of themselves and just dies. I could be wrong,
It
but
could
that was
be.
my
I
understanding.
haven't seen that yet. Of course, we have more mountain lions than deer in all the mountains I hunt. So the deer are struggling, and the mountain lions are, well, quite frankly, the mountain lions are starving too because there's too many of them.
Yeah.
Okay, all right. So last comment for the YouTube. Lori says, Elon is gaining people's trust. Then he will turn and slap chips into our brains. And what could the Martians want with chips in our heads? Do you think? I don't know. Would
I
you
don't know.
would you put a chip in your head?
I don't even want to have one of those contact lenses that are hooked up to like iPhone, Android stuff. Like I'm not,
You know,
you know.
they had that push during COVID that if you didn't uh, get something done, some people wanted to exclude you from society. And I think
Yeah.
that was a faulty way to go about it in this modern day and age. I think how in the future we're going to see things done by you're going to be competed out if you don't get something done. And
Yeah,
I
and
think
it's
that,
definitely a step on our rights. I mean, I don't think that that's the way it
well, I
should be
don't even
done.
think it'll be a step on our rights. But what if you see, I worked in heavy industry for a long time,
Hmm.
operating heavy equipment and big machines. And what if, these chips come out in another 2 years and then 10 years down the road, these machines are maybe not made to where they only function with those chips, but they function more efficient with those chips. Then if you don't get those chips, you'll be priced out of that market. And then say you're a banker, and when
Hmm.
you have that chip in your head, you have real-time information on interest rates and how best to do whatever they do. And if you don't have that, you can't compete. I think that's what we're going to see out of it in the future. I think we're just going to see these trends will not be forced on us. You just have no competition if you don't do them.
Yeah, I mean, like I said, it's better to just get yourself a little piece of farm and completely well, not completely cut yourself off, but cut yourself off enough to where you are sufficient without other people.
I agree, but how does that work?
It's gonna be very, very hard. God, can you imagine, even if you wanted to do that, there's still going to be days where you have to get a hold of a doctor
You have to
or,
buy gas, right?
you're going to need gas for your tractor unless you can. I mean, if you can hook everything up to solar, but then what if you aren't getting sunlight? I mean, there's so many things.
Yeah. I don't
I
know.
just,
King says
you
it's
know,
La Marca de la Bestia. Yeah, and it might be. I don't know. I just think that that's our future. That's where we're headed. And Robin says, but you still have to pay land taxes.
you do. Yeah, you do. You'd have to open up a little side stand where you sell your herbs that you've collected because you're not going to be able to use all
But
your own food. You'd have to give
will
some
they
away.
have money, or will the money be on the chip?
Yeah.
Will you be? I'll trade you this herb for that egg, and where money is just caloric storage. That's all money is.
It is.
It's just caloric storage. Because if you if you have eggs and you need work done that costs more than your morning's worth of eggs, how do you work that out? Yeah. Well, you sell eggs in anticipation. You gather up this caloric storage and you hand that over to the guy that requires more than your morning egg lot.
Yeah.
So that's where we're at. Anyway, okay. I'm going to cut you loose.
Well, thanks for coming on. Dinner. Thank you for letting me participate. It was fun. I always have a great time talking with you, and we go off subjects all the time.
Yeah, I don't know. What was this show about again, folks? I can't remember.
The Wendigo, right? Yeah. I mean...
Yeah, the Wendigo is my favorite. I'm like this. Whenever the seasons change, that's when I start thinking about the next things I think about. And the Wendigo... Ever since I discovered it, I don't know, a decade ago, maybe longer, has been my winter thought. It has been my, if I'm going to look up a scary story in the winter or want to hear about something scary in the winter, it's always the Wendigo I go to because it's just more here and now, more prescient. You know, when it's cold.
All my thoughts go to, I could be in Alaska and be wearing warm clothes and having fun, or I could be back home in the valley in California and be nice and warm and toasty. I have none of these thoughts.
Well, I mean, when I'm looking for this type of thought, because the winter is when the Wendigo shows up. You can't hunt in the winter. You can't raise food in the winter. The winters are hard. And
so, Jared, I know you asked me, but would you try human meat?
Oh, that's a tough question. I'm going to say no.
I knew that it was from somebody that it was an accident. They don't do drugs.
Well, they sound no fun. They would probably be bland. I want a druggie with.
You don't want some tough meat?
I don't want all bland meat.
You ever watch What We Do in the Shadows show where they suck the blood of the druggie and they're like, I'm high and I'm a wizard?
I don't know. I've never seen. I don't watch a lot of TV, but here's the thing.
It's a great show.
Is I am a meat lover. I am also a hunter, and I am a very exploratory eater. I don't know if I would try it. One, you put up on the
nibble though. Like it's not like you're having a full.
Maybe like a wine tasting, put it in my mouth, swish it around, then spit it out on a plate and taste the tannins. Well, one, I recognize that there are nerve endings in every muscular tissue. And you put a post on Facebook that mentioned prions disease. Prions are the disease that cannibals get, the shaking disease.
Mm-hmm.
So I don't know. That might be a hazard, but would I try human? Because I've eaten a lot of stuff. I've eaten a lot of bugs. I've eaten a lot.
Bugs aren't bad.
Bugs.
Worms kind of freak me out. I don't want worms. I don't want to eat a worm. But...
I've had potato bugs. I've had worms. I've had crickets. I've had snails.
I love chocolate covered crickets. Just taste like Kit Kats. I love them.
Yeah. But I don't know if I would. I would have to think about that. I would definitely have to think about that. I don't know. But that is wild. Have you heard of Arwen Mevis?
No.
Arwen Mevis. We did a show on him. He was a German cat. It's a show we did about 6 months ago. And he was a German cat that there has been a lot of pop culture built off of this one guy.
I'll have to look it up because we need to let you go because you don't want to miss your birthday dinner.
Yes, I've got to get to dinner, but I will, heck, we'll chat with you real soon. We got to have you back in. I'm I wanted to also get into your readings you've been doing lately, so we got to have you back on and talk about that and maybe do some tarot stuff.
The one I had yesterday, I've been doing the journaling that you can do now.
That's what I want to talk about.
That was awesome because I was like, oh, damn it. That's exactly what happened.
Well, let's plan on in the next month, we'll have you back on to talk about that, talk about the journaling part of it and what that has changed for you.
Yeah, that sounds good? Fun. Let's do it.
All right. Perfect. All right, everyone. Thanks, Sarah Forrest. You can find her on Facebook. It's Sarah Cook. I don't know where else you can find. Okay. Well, you've got Hidden Realms. If you go there, you can find her.
Yes. So
if you go to
hiddenrealmsparanormal.com.
Now the Paranormal Girls is pair, like the two.
PAIR
dash O dash normal.
Normal.
So it's Paranormal.
Yes, and they're part of Hidden Realms as well, those two girls. And so like either way, you'll get a hold of us, you'll get a hold of them. So it's fine.
It's like a country club. They're a community. They've all got their own little groups, but they all interrove and make a nice, strong tartan. But yeah, if you they also do ghost hunting and
we do. And Jared, you were there, right, when the cabinet opened at Grey Cliff?
I was there, and my nephew has loved it forever. We also got the video, but yeah, we'll have to have you come on and just talk about any investigations you've had lately and stuff. We'll get that together. But everyone, thanks for joining us. And I will be back next Thursday. I'm hoping Betsy will be here. Her life is chaotic right now. We'll see how it goes. But everyone have a wonderful weekend. Have a wonderful mid-December, and get your Christmas shopping done like I plan on doing in exactly 8 days.
I just ordered everybody pajamas, so I guess they're screwed.
Yeah. Same size. Everyone gets the same size.
I'm like, I hope it fits.
All right.
I have COVID. This is what you get.
Yeah. I just
All right, well, thanks. I'll see you guys later. Thank you, guys.
Yep. We'll see you later.